Hey everybody, Dr. Rob here. How are you? Monday, great weekend. It was beautiful outside and got some very interesting, cutting edge stuff to share with everybody. Um, it's, as everybody knows, and I've said it almost every time, I'm all about the gut, and I get a lot of feedback about people speaking about the gut, asking questions. Today I just had another doctor call me. They wanted me to treat their daughter. And it's always great when your colleagues, your brethren, always want to bring in a family member. There is nothing more compelling and more heartfelt than when someone wants to bring in a family member. Having said that, they wanted to bring in a family member. It was interesting because they know that they have a vagus nerve problem, and they know that they're suffering from a little dementia, teenager, things of that nature. So what they're saying is the gut microbiota poses an issue. And having heard that from her, I looked up some articles, some Today articles, if you will, about the gut microbiota. And in my book, which is coming out this year, one of the statements I make is, do you have the guts to be healthy? What have you done for your guts lately? What have you done for your gut health lately? So we're going to talk about that because, again, 80% of our immune cells are in our gut. It's where our macro and micronutrients are absorbed. And again, why is our gut lined with all these immune cells? Well, it's lined with it because that's where the number one amount of pathogens come, and those pathogens come from food. We have to realize. So I want this to always resonate. Food is a potentiator for inflammation. Good food is a potentiator for health information. Now that we covered that, I got an article right here in Science Direct, which they sourced it from Nutrition Available online, June 7th, 2020. So it really spoke about the effects of multi-species probiotics on the gut microbiota composition on healthy individuals that actually got intestinal constipation. So we're talking about healthy people whose microbiota changed, and their microbiota changed because their gut bacteria changed. So people say, probiotics, yes or no? The answer is yes, without question. So let's go through this and let me break it down a little bit more for you. Number one, the highlights were the gut microbiota is extremely relevant study target for conditions such as constipation. So here were healthy individuals who are suffering from constipation, inability to expel. One of the main causes of constipation is dysbiosis. Now, we hear this all the time. Dysbiosis and the leveling of good and bad bacteria. You need about 85% good bacteria to 15% bad bacteria to not have this dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is one of the main reasons for what we call leaky gut. That damage to the gut damages our immune system, damage to digestion, things of that nature. Now, dysbiosis is interesting in that it occurs from poor food ingestion, taking non-steroid anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, the environment around us, the toxins like PBA, lead, mercury, and the like. So all these things can damage our gut and damage our gut lining, or more importantly, the amount of good and bad bacteria. So we have that battle every day. So I always tell everybody, please try and avoid your cheat date. Try and eat things that always fill your gut with good bacteria. So many people say, well, I'm almost there. I just spoke to a patient and I said to them, are you gluten and dairy free? Well, I'm almost there. There's no almost when it comes to things that can damage your gut, like gluten and dairy. It's either you're eating gluten and dairy free, for argument's sake, you're limiting the sugar, you're limiting the amount of processed foods, or you're eating all the things that you shouldn't, which will not enable you to populate or keep the population of good bacteria there, as evidenced by this study where these people had some constipation. The other third point was the modulation of the gut microbiota with probiotics may ameliorate constipation. So really great. So if you take probiotics, or you take a good amount, or the right kinds of probiotics, and we're going to get to that again, they suggested a multi-species probiotic prevented the increase of 2 bacteria species related to constipation. So when they take multi, it's not just one. Most people talk about Lactobacillus acidophilus, which is a great probiotic, or B. lactis. You want a multitude. So for me, I'm going to give you some ideas. I love, as I just said, Lactobacillus acidophilus, B. lactis, Bifidobacterium. How about Rhamnosus? How about B. longum? How about I already said B lactis, but B lactis may be 420, a specific kind. So you want to populate your gut with a multitude of different types of bacteria. So you want what I call a full spectrum. You want 5 to 7 different probiotics in there. Aspergillosis is another great choice. Now, a lot of people ask me, probiotic. In this one, they took a capsule. So when you take a capsule, those probiotics are what we call freeze-dried, or what I like to refer to as cryo-cooled. Changes the properties greatly. I carry them a lot. Bacillus subtilis, another bacteria. They're cryo-cooled, so their properties are changed. Having their properties changed, great example is most probiotics don't do well, or what we think do well in acid, but they should do well in acid. So I'm a big proponent if we can get the probiotics that we're talking about instead of a capsule, and they still had a good response with the capsule, I would talk about probiotics in a liquid form. So this was the conclusion. The ultimate conclusion was the results suggest that a multi-species probiotic in a capsule may modulate the gut microbiota by reducing the bacteria that are commonly increased in patients with constipation, contributing to the balance of the microbiota and consequently the well-being of the individual. Notice how they correlated that they correlated that if you take a probiotic, it's not only good for your gut, it's good for your health. So whatever you do to your gut, you do to the rest of your body. Now, there's another study here that talked about gut research delving into obesity problems. So what happened is the researchers analyzed metabolism. This was in Neurogastroenterology and Motility 2020, June 6th. And they found out that we have these enterochromaffin cells. They're sensory cells. They actually live in the GI tract. We talked a little bit about mucus and the mucosal lining last time. They live there, and they're the main source of serotonin. Serotonin is your mood your mood neurotransmitter. So what happened was the amounts changed under the influence of a high-fat diet. That high fat, and again, that high fat is a saturated trans fat they're being very specific on, induced obesity and metabolic disease. So what happened was you had an increase in these cells, you had an increase in serotonin that was found in people who were obese. So the gut bacteria communicates with the cells, which communicates with the brain, and we found out that people actually had a change in hormones. Ghrelin actually made you hungry, increased. So again, we found a direct correlation to the kind of bacteria that you consume that lives in your gut and health markers like obesity, like mood and behavior. So to circle back to that patient who called me that's bringing in their daughter, I'm going to change her gut around. I'm going to change her environment. I'm going to change the house in her gut, if you will. I want her to have a garden. So I got a great question. Dave D'Angelo. Dave, how are you? Purity Coffee, my man. How often do you recommend a 4R program to maintain a healthy GI? It's a really excellent question. So I'm up to 7Rs. Dave and I worked at a company before where we started with the 4R. So the 4R is more like 1 month, which I actually do an awful lot, but over several months I've incorporated it to 7Rs. I'm always doing some form of the Rs on every patient that walks in here. Whether it's a rotator cuff, lower back, or actually just a pure nutrition patient, I'm always spending time on the R's, always trying to help their gut, always trying to ameliorate any issues. But once again, what have you done for your guts lately? Every time you do something, you should think of your gut health. I mean, if every time you put your hand in your pocket, you would have to think of your bank account, because everything that you did related to 80% of your bank account, like 80% of your immune cells, clearly gut health should be at the top of the mind. So these two studies really echo that. It enables it, hopefully, to reverberate with everybody here. Again, I'm always on Monday to Friday. We're trying to do 1 o'clock. We're still sticking with it, even though we're back in the office. Everybody can see I'm here 3 days a week now, doing great. Any patients who want to come in, fabulous. Some real brief ideas. You want to test for gut health. And how do you do testing for gut health? Well, KBMO's got a great FIT test, food intolerance test. So you'll find out if you have any food sensitivity tests. In addition, there are blood tests, and feel free to reach out to me. I'll recommend some blood tests that test for increased intestinal permeability. They test for specific things like LPS, which is an endotoxin. They also test for zonulin and occludin, which are proteins that indicate damage to the tight junction. Actomyosin, which also tell us damage to the epithelial cell. And we also test in those tests to see if you have IgA, IgM, IgG. So you really want to see if you have any autoimmunity, like autoimmunity at the gut level. Critical element. So I'm a big proponent, once again, of testing, not guessing. You want to test. You want to see the status of your gut health. There's also tests to determine what kind of bacteria you have in your gut. Interesting in that the type of bacteria you have in your gut not only tells you if you have health or not health, it'll also tell you what kind of athlete you are. So for instance, rowers, they consider power athletes versus marathon runners, more endurance athletes, have different bacteria. As I said before, I'm hoping Michael Jordan will pass some of his bacteria on to me so maybe I can pick up my basketball game. Having said all of that, take care of your gut. You always have to think what you put in your mouth. Whatever you put in your mouth, you put in your gut. And remember, your gut communicates with your brain. It does so in a millisecond. So whatever you do to your gut, you do to your brain, you do to the rest of your body. Whatever you do to your gut, you do to your brain, you do to the rest of your body. So feel free to share this, like this. Remember, we've got YouTube, Dr. Robert Silverman, Instagram, Dr. Robert Silverman, my LinkedIn, Dr. Robert Silverman. Question of the day is, what have you done for your guts lately? Do you have the guts to be healthy? Well, consider probiotics. Consider probiotics with a prebiotic. Eat a good diet. Exercise. Keep your stress level down. Tune in tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Dr. Rob, always yours in health.